Good morning. This week I'd like to do a bit of a character study between two men in the Bible. The first is King Saul from 1 Samuel 15. Saul was the people's choice. He was not God's choice. And the reason he was the people's choice was he stood about a foot taller than everybody else. He was a big man and everybody thought, wow, he's our champion. But see, size doesn't mean you have a big heart. In 1 Samuel 15, Saul took things into his own hands. God specifically told him through Samuel to destroy the Amalekites for what they had done to Israel, to destroy the king Agag and all the cattle and all everything. It says in verse 9, they were unwilling to utterly destroy them. But everything despised and worthless, that they utterly destroyed. But they were unwilling to destroy everything. They kept the king, they kept the best of the land. And the crazy thing is, Saul thought he'd obeyed God. Because when Samuel confronted him, he says, what? I did obey God. And Samuel said, but obedience is better than sacrifice. And you know, what was going on there? Well, you know, Obadiah, it says, the pride of your heart deceives you. Saul had gotten into pride. It says further in scriptures that when you were small in your own eyes, God was able to help you. Now, Peter, on the other hand, in Luke chapter 5, Jesus asked him to use his boat. Jesus preached a sermon, and then he said, Peter, send your boat out into the deep for a catch. Peter at first said, Master, we've been working all night, and yet we've caught nothing. But then he changed gears and he says, but nevertheless, at your word, I'll send out a net. Now, Peter sent out a net. Jesus told him to send out nets. The result was Peter ended up, they needed other people. There were so many fish, they needed other people to help them. But Peter was still blessed. Peter, in his humility, bowed down before Jesus and says, Lord, I am unworthy. That's the difference between the two men. Both men showed partial obedience, but the heart is what matters. The heart of Saul was hard and it was rebellious, where the heart of Peter, he did it more out of ignorance than out of rebellion. And he was ignorant and he just didn't really understand, but his heart was right towards God. And see, guys, what's so important is, where's your heart at? Where's your heart at? Is your heart right towards God? You know, there's another story, Naaman, in 2 Kings 5, where he was told, Elisha said, through his servant, go and dip in the river Jordan 7 times and you'll be rid of your leprosy. Well, Jordan was a lousy, stinking, dirty river. And he just got in a huff. He says, I'm not going to do that. But his servant said, wait a minute. If he'd have told you to do something monumental, you'd have done it. Why don't you do it anyway? What will it hurt? Naaman obeyed and his leprosy was gone. See, humility is what's required. The Bible says in 1 Peter that God gives grace to the humble, but he resists the proud. God gives grace to the humble. No matter what God calls us to do, your brain is going to go on tilt and go, man, I can't do that. But there needs to be a willingness in our hearts. It says in Isaiah 1:19, if we are willing and obedient, we shall obey the good of the land. Guys, pray this week. If there's an area that you're unwilling to do that God's putting into your heart, then say, Lord, go before God and say, God, I'm willing to be willing. I'm willing to be willing. I want to be willing. Tenderize my heart. Break my heart for what you want, God. And have a great week.